Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel, Knit with Fee. I'm Fee and this video is about everything that I knit in 2024. And before I start, I want to introduce you to a colleague of mine who you may have seen if you watched my previous video, but I feel like she's probably going to be around a lot, so I'd better properly introduce her. So this is Sophie. Sophie, come. This is Sophie. She loves lying on the bed, so I think that she'll be in these videos a lot. Is that your bone? Yeah, okay. The way I'm going to do this video is I'm going to split it up into sections. Oh, I should probably tell you before I start what I'm wearing. I didn't do that last time. So this is, if you saw my last video, you may have seen I was working on the Petite Knit balloon sweater and it is now finished. It's not blocked yet because I just finished it yesterday. So this is how it looks unblocked, but yeah, I really love it. I'm really chuffed with it. And the headband is a headband that I just made up. I think it's 3x3 ribbing with some leftover yarn that I had. I will show you what it matches in a minute when I go through everything I knit in 2024. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to split it up into kind of groups. So when I first started knitting again, I started off knitting a cushion cover and then some blankets, so I'll show you them first. Then I'll go on to accessories that I knit, and socks, and you know, small items like hats and that kind of thing. And then I'll go into tops, so jumpers and t-shirts. So without further ado, let's get started. The very first thing that I ever knit when I got back into knitting was this cushion cover. So my daughter asked me to make her a cushion cover and I thought, I've not knit in a while, why don't I knit it? And so I just knit a whole bunch of garter stitch. I cast on the number of stitches that I thought I would need. I didn't follow any sort of pattern. It was a little bit too wide, so I ended up rotating it. So I'd meant it, if you look, it knits that way. I meant it to knit that way and knit round the pillow, but because it was so big I turned it round. And then I picked up stitches on the other side to do this little section here in the middle. And when I was done, it overlaps, there's a button there and a few clasps on either side here, so that if we need to take the pillow out or if we want to wash it or that kind of thing, it's easier to get out. The wool was just from a local department store. It is 100% polyester, I think. It's really kind of soft, fluffy type of super chunky wool. And that is all I really have to say about that. But even though it's really plain and it's not my favourite thing that I've knitted, it's got a little bit of a special place because it is what got me back into knitting. So once I'd made that, I had a little bit of wool left. I had one ball actually of this wool left, and my daughter asked me to make her a blanket. So the next thing I made was a blanket. So this is the blanket. I had to go back to the shop and buy some more wool. This white wool is what I had left over, and then I carried on with this kind of variegated pink stuff. At this point I was using needles that I had left over, so they were given to me by my mother-in-law and they were kind of long needles, they weren't circular needles at all. So I just cast on again how many stitches I thought I needed and knit, and it wasn't until I knit quite a bunch that it grew and I saw how big it was. So what it meant was that it ended up being a lot wider than I thought. I cast on 135 stitches in this super chunky, and it was, I think what I did was I just cast on the number of stitches that would fit on that needle because it was, you know, so much less space than you have on a circular. So what ended up happening was I meant for this white bit to be like at the top, but I ended up making it lengthways. So if I open this out, this is actually the side, and it's just shorter than a sheet that way, but it works fine for my daughter because she's only 9. And on the other side there's also a white bit that's the same size, and then the middle section is that variegated wool. It's again 100% polyester, nice and soft. And yeah, and once I'd made that, I decided I was going to make another one. This one is in stockinette, by the way, so it's stockinette stitch all the way along. And then the final blanket that I made, very, very similar it's going to be, just different colours, but the same yarn, different coloured variegations. This one I did make to be the size of a single blanket. So again, it's stockinette. This time I cast on 100 stitches, so it was not as wide, and I knitted it lengthways. Yeah, and we use it all the time. We normally use it, it sits on the back of our sofa downstairs, and we'll use it in the evenings or in the winter when it's cold to cover ourselves up while we're watching things. Those are the household items that I made that started me back into knitting. And after I'd knit a few of them, I thought, you know, I'd like a bit of a challenge. I'm just knitting rectangles at the moment. And so I started looking on YouTube to find out how to increase, how to decrease, that sort of thing. And that's how I fell into the rabbit hole that is YouTube knitting videos, which I'm really chuffed that I managed to get into those, because I'm absolutely loving them. There's so much good content out there. And I decided I was going to make garments because that is what I had made in my previous knitting lives. And what did I say I was going to start with? I start with small things. So the very first pattern that I downloaded was a free pattern. It was for toe-up socks, and it was, let me just check. It was the Standard Sock by Carly Perrins. And I did not have, I think it was 2.5mm needles it recommended, which I didn't have. I believe that's a US 2. And so I used the closest I had, which was 3mm. And I started on these socks. Took me a few attempts to get the magic cast on, I think it's called, Judy's Magic Cast On or something like that. I misread the pattern at first and made it far too big, so I had to restart again a couple of times, and because they were quite large, no, I think they were always meant to be for my husband, because this is not a colour that I would normally wear, and it is a colour that he would wear. So I made them for him. They turned out okay. It's the heel and gusset, but from toe up, and they are too big for him. They're very loose. Also, I didn't understand, in my head the heel went all the way up your heel to your ankle, which it obviously doesn't. So these are very, very ankle socks, and I also really struggled to find a cast off that wasn't floppy but was loose enough to get over his foot. So I ended up, it's quite a floppy cast off. So all in all, they're not great, but they were my first attempt at a sock, and he does wear them. He wears them around the house. The yarn is from Wool Warehouse. It's their Yarnsmiths brand, and it was on sale October and November and December of last year. And so I bought quite a few balls of this. Yeah, I've still got about half the ball left because, you know, these are quite short socks. But those were the first ever socks that I knit. After that, the second pair of socks that I knit were same pattern, but for me, same yarn. This was on 2.5mm needles. Let me think. I think both of them I was doing magic loop method. I remember, because I struggled with ladders up the sides with the first sock. Do I have it on this one? I think it's a lot better on these ones, but definitely on my husband's. There's ladders up the side where, because you have half the stitches on one side, half the stitches on the other, and the end 2 stitches ended up being quite loose, I think. These ones are much better. These ones, I apologise, they're still wet. I've just been in the wash, so they're a bit wet. But yeah, I really enjoy them. They have pilled quite a lot. So I finished making them, I think, in November. So I've had them for a few months. I do wear them a lot. I think I've worn them maybe like 6 times. As in worn and washed them 6 times. But I really like them. They're really soft. They've really held up. And they're just really comfortable. So yeah, I have really enjoyed them. They have stretched a little bit. In fact, I think this time they seem to have stretched more, lengthways anyway. But so far that I've not noticed that to be like, they still seem to fit quite well. So yeah, these ones I was much happier with. Same pattern as I said before. Toe up. I did the Italian bind off, and I think that was much better. I like that much better, and it is loose enough to get over my foot, so I was really pleased with that. I also really wanted to practice the Italian bind off because it took me quite a few tries to understand it and to get it right. So yeah, I think I redid this quite a few times until I got it into my head how the Italian bind off worked. Again, I really apologise. I'm going to be switching between English ways of saying things and US ways of saying things, because a lot of the YouTube videos I watch are US based, and so, or international anyway, and so they use one way of saying things, but then in my knitting groups, people say other things, and a couple of other YouTubers. So I'm gonna alternate between cast on, cast off, bind off. I don't think there's a bind on, is there? And then stockinette, I say. I've been told that it's meant to be stocking stitch in the UK. And as I said in my previous video, I'll probably switch between jumper and sweater as well, because all the patterns are called sweater, something sweater, but I call them jumpers. So that's my second pair of socks. Much better. Love 2.5mm needles, much better than the 3mm needles. They fit an awful lot better on me than my husband's do on him, so I was really happy with that. So then the next pair of socks I made was another pair that I made for my husband, and they are here. These ones fit him so much better. These were also 2.5mm needles, and at this point I'd bought the Sock Project by Summer Lee, so I was using her basic sock pattern for the heel flap and gusset. So this is a top down sock. I don't have the book on me actually to show you, but that's where this pattern came from. I did the size large, I think it is, but also went up a needle size because hers are 2.25 in that book, and I used 2.5. Yeah, I'm really pleased with these. I think it helped as well. This yarn is, I think it's King Cole. I'll put up here what it's called because I've forgotten, but it's something along the lines of like Fruitilicious or something. And this one is Dragon Fruit. And yeah, he absolutely loves them. They fit really well. I think it's an acrylic nylon blend. The yarn had a little bit of give, like a little bit almost elastic feeling, so I think that helped as well fit better to the foot. But yeah, he's worn these quite a lot. They've held up so far. I really like the heel flap and gusset. I really like top down. I'm still experimenting with edging that's like really elastic but not floppy. But this one I think is just the what's it called? Long tail cast on. and it's been fine for him for these socks. It does, you can see here, one of the socks has a kind of noticeable hole there. I'm getting a bit better at doing that now, but I've just looking at these now, I've noticed that, yeah, this one's got a bit of a hole there, and it is something that I think a lot of people struggle with socks with different heel patterns, getting a hole in that corner there. So yeah, that is the socks. I think that's all the socks that I knitted in 2024. I have knit a couple more this year, but I will do those in a separate video. The other thing that I knitted that are kind of sock-like are these mittens. They're fingerless mittens. They are Rico Designs yarn. It's called Fun Alpaca. When I first got into knitting again, I went to a bunch of different knitting shops near me, and there's one in the centre of Manchester that I went to, and it had one ball left of this yarn, 50 grams, and I really loved it. I don't know if you can see, it's like grey, but it's got like tweed but rainbow, pink and blue and green kind of patches in it, and it's not boucle, but it's not evenly spun, and I just really loved it. So I didn't buy it because I thought I can't make anything with one ball, I have no clue what to do with it, but I kept going back, and in the end I did buy the one ball, and I thought I'd make some fingerless gloves. So the pattern is my own. I just knit them. I did a ribbing at the bottom and then stockinette stitch and a small ribbing at the top. At the time, I was really nervous I wouldn't have enough wool. I didn't know how much a 50-gram ball, I'm pretty sure this is DK weight, and I didn't know how much a 50-gram ball would knit, and so I was really nervous I'd run out. So if I hadn't been that nervous, I would have knit further up here to cover my fingers a little bit more. But what I have been doing recently is turning them around, because I wear a lot of jumpers now. I don't need the mitts to go far down my arm, but so I turn them around and wear them like this, and I can always fold them down if I want to. So yeah, I quite enjoy wearing these, and they're the ones that match my headband because I had extra wool, and I still got extra wool. I've got enough to make another headband, so I could have made these longer. I did have an issue with the thumb hole, so because I made the pattern up myself, it's just straight knitting, and then you kind of stop for a little bit there and go back and forth. So it's not ideal, it's not the best pattern in the world, but it was fun to do, and I mean it works fine for me. The only thing I did find in one of them, which is worse than the other, is I don't know if you can see that, the edges of the holes, that there's thread, like it's really open and pulling. So I don't know, I think if I were to do it again, I'd figure out how to not make that happen. The other one's a lot better. I think it's because I might have sewn it together a little bit there. I can't quite remember, but that hole is a lot neater than that hole. Oh, you can't really see, so you might have to take my word for it. But yeah, I love these. I do wear them. I wear them quite a lot. They're really nice and warm, and I just think they're a bit of fun. So those are my mitts. I would like to make some more mittens, but I'm kind of not feeling winter accessories because we're coming hopefully out of winter now towards spring, so I may leave it until towards the end of the year to start knitting things again like that. So the next accessory I knit was this hat. This was at a period where I couldn't find very many yarn shops near me, and a lot of the ones I found had just a lot of acrylic, a lot of the same brand acrylic, And so what I ended up doing was buying different yarns online, just one ball, and then I would kind of see what I could see what they felt like. I could knit them up, knit a swatch, see what they're like, that kind of thing. And this was actually an acrylic yarn that I bought online, a tweed one that I bought from Wool Warehouse. And yeah, I really liked it. I don't super enjoy knitting with acrylic. It feels a bit plasticky, or there's huge variations in acrylic, so there's some really nice acrylic out there. But most of the acrylic I've knitted with, it's not my favourite. And this was the same. It was not my favourite, but I didn't mind it, and I quite liked, again, it's that grey with the rainbow. I think I was really into that this year. And so yeah, this pattern again is one that I made up from my head. I will put up what yarn it is on one of these sides here. It was a design again that I made myself. I knew I wanted it to be 2x2 rib, so I just did 2x2 rib and kind of tried to work out a way to nicely reduce it. So I think I ended up reducing it in 4 places. 2 of them, it was on a 2x2 kind of knit stitch, so it was kind of 3 ended up going in together, and the other ones it was on a purl stitches, so it was 2 that went in together to start with. So it's a bit uneven, not the best design in the world, but I like it. I really like it, actually. I do wear it, and I learned how to make baubles as well, which was fun. I do wear it, but not loads, and not wool I would get again, but I do really like the patterns. I love the bits of tweed. Then I decided I wanted to try some colour work because I'd never done colour work before. So I watched a podcast, I think it was Wool Needles Hands, who recommended this pattern as a really good starting point for your first ever colour work. So I thought I'd try it. I decided to make a hat for my husband. It is green and brown, which are his 2 favourite colours. Again, I'll put up on the side the pattern. I'll show you the Ravelry for this pattern. But I really agree that it's a really great starting point for colour work. I enjoyed making it, which I have not enjoyed colour work since, not stranded colour work anyway. But I quite enjoyed it. I think it looks okay from the inside as well because of the nature of it. There's just little bits and then it just switches colours, so the strands don't get too tangled. There's only 2 colours and there's only a small areas where the strands are quite long. So yeah, I'm happy with it. Again, it's like a slouchy hat, which is not his favourite style, so he doesn't wear it loads. Can you see that? But I think it's quite nice. I think it's I quite like these colours as well, but not with what I'm wearing at the moment. So again, it's not one that he wears all the time, but he does wear it occasionally, and it was a really good starting point for colour work. I do actually really like it. I like the pattern as well. I do like how it goes. Yeah, I really hope that this camera and the sound is going to be better on this video than my previous video. I know the lighting's not ideal. It's really hard to find good light in the UK at the moment because the weather's just so grey. It's been grey for weeks and weeks, and I'm really craving some sun at the moment. But yeah, this is the lightest room in the house, which is why I'm filming here. But yeah, unfortunately the lighting's not ideal. But again, that's something I can work on as I carry on with my channel. So that's my last beanie that I made. Oh, acrylic yarn. I can't remember what needles. I'll put it up here that I used. But it was Yarn Smith's Create yarn. And again, it was fine to work with, but not my favourite. So the next thing I made was also due to my idea of buying a whole bunch of single balls to see what they're like. And this one I bought from Hobby, and it was their upcycled Surrey alpaca, I think it's called. And I did a swatch, wasn't sure how I felt, washed it. It really smelled quite strongly when I washed it. I think a lot of alpaca, like if it's pure or almost pure alpaca, does, it seems. It's brushed alpaca, by the way. I really grew to really like that smell, and also when it washed, it got so soft, and so I really loved it. I loved that yarn, and I went to buy some more to do a jumper, and they were sold out of pretty much every colour that I liked, and they only had colours that I wasn't gonna get, which was a shame. So I decided with that one ball of wool, I'm going to try and knit something up because I loved it so much. And I did. I knit this hood. It's the Tromso hood. And I adapted it because I only had one ball of wool, and that calls for 2. It calls for 100 grams. This is 50 grams. And so I reduced the ribbing around the neck, and I slightly reduced the size as well, and I slightly reduced the increase. It still fits me, but you can probably tell it's quite tight. It's not something I wear a lot of again. I do occasionally. It's so soft, it's so warm, and I feel like I'm having a hug when I'm wearing it. I wished it came further forward and it was a bit looser, and you'll see with the next one, because I made this again in another yarn, I've got the same issues. That one I did follow the pattern properly because I bought 2 balls of yarn, but it still is a bit small, and I'm really keen to do another pattern that's a bit looser. I've got a few in mind, but again, I probably won't do that till the end of this year, you know, September, October, coming into Christmas, or coming into winter again anyway. But yeah, I do like it. I do wear it, but not as much as I should, because I knit another one, and I prefer the fit of that slightly. I really love the colour of that one. I'll show it to you in a minute. And this one, the colour doesn't really go with my winter coat. My winter coat is this kind of colour. It's a very similar light grey, so it's not ideal. I do also have a black coat that I sometimes wear, and I think this would go better with that one. But yeah, I just don't tend to reach for it that much. So the next one I've already started talking about is the same pattern again. It's the Tromso hood. This is in Schneffnug by Camarose. And yeah, you can see it's a bit looser, fits a bit better. My sewing skills still leave a lot to be desired, so it's a bit uneven the way I've sewed it together. But yeah, I love this colour. It's a little bit pixie at the back here. I think if I did it again, I would knit a little bit more after the curved reduce before sewing it together, so it's not quite so, but it's quite cute having this little point sticking up here. It's twisted rib. The other one I didn't do in twisted rib. This one I did do, well, half twisted. It's not twisted on the underside. I really like twisted rib, actually. I think it gives a really nice crisp look. I added the I-cord edging to this one, which I didn't add to this one. And I like it better with the I-cord edging. My only issue was I started up here, and I think I did it too long, and so it kind of peaks together because there's a bit too much fabric there. So it does like a little bit of a peak at the front, which I would prefer it didn't do, but I think it's okay. I think that is my last hood that I knitted in 2024. And the only other accessories that I knit, well, I didn't knit, I crocheted, were a couple of bags. So I'll just show them. They're not knitting, but when I first started knitting, I also thought I'd like to crochet. gave it a go. I don't love crochet. I much prefer knitting. It's much more textural, which I think some people really love, but for me, I really like the smooth lightness that knitting can bring. And so, yeah, I prefer knitting, but I thought I'd try some crochet. So I found this macrame yarn just in a supermarket, and I made this kind of bag. I use it now as a project bag. I Googled how to crochet, and there's a lot of double crochet in here. There's a lot of trial and error, and I just kind of made up my own pattern and made up my own kind of how many stitches. What I really wanted was it to be quite loose with big holes, but I didn't get that, and I realized most of the way through my second bag why that was. But yeah, I used YouTube to learn how to double crochet. What I didn't realize was that there's possibly a different definition for double crochet in the US and the UK. So I think I must have used a UK version the first time I looked on YouTube, and that's what I used. This one is. And then when I went back to check, then I saw a US version, which I think in the UK is a triple. The next bag that I made, about 2/3 of the way through, I figured out that what I really wanted to do were triple crochets. And so the top part, this is what I wanted from the other bag. And you can see at the bottom part, there are different stitches down there. So what I did in order to get the loose holes was to just knit less. Crochet less stitches and have more going across, so the holes would be bigger. But yeah, I really liked it when I figured out how to do the triple crochets, which just naturally give you bigger holes, which is what I was looking for. This yarn was again off Wool Warehouse. I'll put it up here. It's like a jean kind of patterned yarn, and I use this bag all the time. I use it when I go out shopping. It's good. The only thing is if I'm putting my knitting in it, then I'll have to put that in a project bag in here, otherwise the knitting needles will poke out the sides. But yeah, I do like it. It's quite a good size. The other thing is if it's got things that are too heavy, it gets really quite long. But yeah, I do use that all the time. This one I don't take out. This one I use at home for big knitting projects and things like that. So yeah, you can see this is a much tighter weave, much smaller holes, using that double crochet all the way through. So after making those bags, I observed that I didn't really enjoy crochet nearly as much as I enjoy knitting. So I've not made anything with crochet since. And the final thing is garments, or I say garments, I don't know, does socks and mittens count as garments? But I mean tops, jumpers, t-shirts, that kind of thing. I think around about November last year, I decided I wanted to have a go at a garment, at a top. So the first top that I made was a pattern. It was a free pattern I found on Ravelry called On the Beach by Isabel Kramer. It is a sport weight pattern. I use sport weight merino yarn. I think it's Drops Merino. Yeah, it is Drops Merino. I think it's Drops Baby Merino. 100% merino yarn. I think in the pattern they use a mohair because it seems a bit fluffier. This one was a really interesting one. So I think this is superwash merino, and when I knit it I thought, ooh, this is quite tight, but I think it looked quite good being a fitted top. So then I carried on. I knit the whole thing, and then I blocked it and it grew so much. And every time I've washed it since, it's grown again. So I don't know if you can see, but it's just really big. On me, it still looks fine. And I'll show you a video of what it looks like on me. But it just looks enormous. I think the design was to use thin yarn but big needles, so it was really light and airy, like you would wear on the beach. And I think combining that with the fact that it's 100% superwash merino wasn't the best idea, because there's all that air, then it ends up, you know, you've got all those nice round stitches that end up being longer because gravity. And so it just got longer and longer and longer. I really love this pattern, and I've used this pattern a couple of times, like as a base to then try and make my own things. Nothing that I've completed yet, but I do really like the pattern. It's got some nice, you know, shaping, going back and forth around the neck. It's got some shaping at the back neck as well. Really simple shaping, but that really seems to work well. And yeah, I really like it. So I think I may make more of these. I might use DK yarn instead, or try some other types of yarn, because I'm not a huge fan of how much this is stretched. But other than that, I do really like it, and I do wear it. So then the next thing I made was I found some wool on sale for like $2.99 a ball. It was Rowan Mako Baby, which is a blown yarn, and it's a cotton mixed with lyocell, I believe. And I really liked it, but they only had a couple of colours, and I wasn't a huge fan of the colours. So I wanted to see what it was like, so I bought some balls, just a couple of balls, in apple green and lemon yellow. But then I looked around online elsewhere, and I found on eBay some other colours, like for bulk buying. So I bought this grey colour to be the main colour, and then this is the apple green is the stripes. I think it's an Aran weight. The pattern I used was actually, it's a free pattern on Ravelry, but it's a jumper pattern that I then adapted. So it is, I think it's called the brick sweater. Yeah, sweater. So it's just a raglan with, you can choose to have shaping on the body or not. I chose not to because I made a t-shirt instead of a jumper. But yeah, I really like the pattern. Again, it's nice. I'll show you what it looks like on me. It's cotton, so I'm expecting it to grow, and that's okay. I'm not a huge fan of the colour on me. It looks okay actually in this light. But I thought I'd like the grey, because I don't like not that I don't like, but like fluorescent baby colours, that kind of thing just doesn't look good on me. So I thought that this grey brown would suit me better, but actually I'm not a huge fan. So I've not worn it loads. I've worn it a few times. I finished this in December, I believe. Yeah. And I've worn it maybe 2 or 3 times since. It's quite heavy as well, which is another reason maybe I don't wear it so much. It's got I-cord edging, which I quite like. It's just a plain raglan, and it has the same issues that I find with other plain raglans that I've made, which is it bunches a little bit on the shoulder when I wear it, so it's not super smooth. But other than that, yeah, I liked it. I would recommend that pattern. Do I have anything else to say about this? I did it in the size, I did it like in a mixture between small and medium for 2 reasons. The first reason was I don't like, I say wearing this, I don't like things too tight around my neck. And because I wasn't going to make it a t-shirt instead of a jumper, I wanted it to be looser around the neck. So I wanted to do medium for the neck, but then the body, Didn't have to be medium necessarily. So I did kind of a combination of small and medium. I used 5mm needles for it, and I do still have some balls left, so I might make something else. I think I've got 4 balls of this. I end up using 6 balls of this grey and 1 ball of the apple. So I have 4 balls of the grey left. I've got 1 ball of the apple, and I've got 2 of like a lemon yellow as well. So I need to think about what I'm going to make with that. That's everything. Then my husband asked me if I would make him a jumper. So we spent a lot of time on Ravelry trying to find a pattern that he liked. And in the end, he chose this one here. He wanted it in a different colour though. He wanted green and brown because those are his favourite colours. And so I knit him this Lopi jumper. This is it here. I'll put some pictures of him wearing it because it'd be a bit big on me. But in some ways I really like how it turned out, in some ways I don't. So it was my first big colourwork project. I was a little bit nervous about it. I'm quite slow at colourwork at the moment, so I did find it a bit of a chore. I also don't really like the massive colourwork on the sleeves because it just means you've got so many you know, threads inside where you can get your thumb and your fingers caught when you're trying to put it on. So I didn't like that. I'd heard that you want to make sure you knit quite loose for colourwork, and so I did that, and I ended up knitting too loose. So some of the stitches are just too big, particularly I think on the sleeve. I also found that when I was knitting it, the fabric wasn't flat, and so I thought that was because I'd made things too tight. So then on the sleeves I made them a lot looser, and it turned out that when I blocked it, it just smoothed out anyway, and I didn't have to worry about that. And so yeah, some of the stitches on the sleeve are really quite massive. The other thing was I didn't buy enough yarn. I stupidly substituted one yarn for another because it was in the same weight category and didn't look at the length. And so I needed to, I was slowed down because I had to keep going back and buying more balls. I used Big Merino, Drops Big Merino. My husband really doesn't like scratchy stuff, and so I didn't want to use scratchy wool. So I thought I'd do merino wool. He loves it. I think that these types of patterns look better in like rustic, but yeah, he prefers this, and it doesn't look bad. This was where I learned that some really spun yarns have really interesting stitching. Like the stitches don't look great, or well, it's not that they don't look great, it's just it seems like one side spins more than the other side in a little stitch, so it comes up with this strange pattern. I did knit it a little bit too big, so I made a mistake when folding the pattern. I made him the size small, but the yoke is kind of a size large in length, which made it a little bit longer than it was meant to be, but it's not too long for him. It's okay. It also stretched out because, again, it's superwash merino. After both these experiences, I've, you know, that really hammered home that superwash merino really can stretch out a lot. Do I have anything else to say about this? We went through lots of different trying to find colours for colours that would work, because the original design is like white to black with grayscale. I think we've done a good job. I think those colours go quite nicely together, and it's nice and warm. It's really quite heavy because it's quite thick. I believe this is an Aran or worsted weight yarn, so it is quite thick. And the other thing I didn't realise when I made this was when you're sewing in the ends, you need to like leave a length So I'd sew them in and then cut it really short, and then it would come and poke out of the fabric. So there's a couple of ends poking out. Like there's an end poking out that I need to like push back to the other side. So that was another thing that I learnt doing this one. But yeah, I like the finished product. I'd do it differently if I did it again, but I didn't super enjoy the colourwork parts of it because it just was really slow and there's lots of yarns all over the place, which is why I'm really interested in trying other types of colourwork. But maybe as well, I just need to practice my colourwork a bit better and a bit more, and I'll become better at it. And then the only other pattern that I knit in 2024, the very final thing that I made, which I finished on 29th of December, I finished it, so right before the new year, was Petite Knit's balloon sweater. Let me show you it here. I'll also show you some pictures of me wearing it. This is in Drop Sky, which is the first time I've knitted with Drop Sky, and I really enjoyed the knitting process. It is a chainette yarn. This is in the colour Hot Chocolate, which again, I really like this colour. I don't think I've worn this colour before, but I really like this colour on me. I had to go up a needle size, so I went up to 5mm needles. It's a DK weight. The pattern suggests a fingering paired with a lace, but it all seemed to work okay. I made the size small. It turned out to be the right size, which is different from, let me think. No, these ones were all relatively okay, I think. I think the t-shirt anyway, I wanted it to be a little bit loose, so that was fine. I found the jumpers I've made since have knit up smaller, but this one knit up to be just the size that the pattern suggested that a small would be, and yeah, I really like it. I did make a few mistakes, so I cast on too few stitches at the beginning, so I had to increase a little bit just at the back of the neck to have the right number of stitches. It's my first drop shoulder. I really like drop shoulders so far. This is it again. And I originally bought the yarn because I really wanted to make this, but because it was going to be my first proper jumper, I think I cast this on before I cast this on, so it was going to be my first proper jumper. I wanted to do it in cheaper yarn first, but actually, no, I do like both of them, but I do really love this one, so I don't like it any less because the yarn was cheaper, and I've really enjoyed wearing this. I wear this all the time. Like I say, I finished it December 29th and it's been washed at least twice since then, which tells you how much I've been wearing it. Yeah, and I really enjoyed this pattern. I think this was my favourite pattern so far. The only thing I would do differently if I were to knit it again is that I really liked how many short rows it had. In terms of other jumpers I've made, I feel like there's not quite enough short rows, so the neck is still quite high, and I don't like tight things around my neck, I say, as I'm wearing this. I don't mind this kind of thing for some reason. I've gotten better with this, but it's when it's meant to be down here and it's up here. I like that there's loads of short rows, but I think there's just slightly too many for me. And so, yeah, it can bunch up a little bit at the back on both of these. This one a little bit more so, I think, than this one. But yeah, so if I were to do it again, I'd probably do slightly less short rows, so it was not quite so sloping. Yeah, and the other thing I think is I might see if I can, it's got this really lovely detail where there's just this one stitch going down here, and I might see if I did it again if I could make this stitch just slightly bigger than the others, because it does tend to bunch up a little bit here. That has completely come out with blocking on this one, so, and this one's not blocked yet, so I think maybe, but you might be able to see it bubbling a little bit there. So I think when I block it, hopefully that'll fix that. But yeah, that is my balloon sweater with petite knit. And again, I got a lot of practice with the Italian cast on and the Italian cast off. My relationship with the Italian cast off has completely changed, because I hated it to start with because it was so fiddly, and now I really enjoy it. That is everything that I knit in 2024. I have carried on knitting since then, so I'm sure, I think at the end of Feb or maybe the end of March, I will do everything I've knit so far in 2025, something like that. I also would really like to do a video about like what my plans are for 2025, but I think the next one I make will be another podcast episode to tell you where I'm up to, you know, talk about any finished items, any new whips, anything like that. So that is what I plan to do next. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider giving it a like or subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. And yeah, I hope you have a really good day, and I wish you all the best till I see you again.